to welcome Gabrielle Union and Jasmine Scott. First, I'm going to do some housekeeping notes. So, in order to get into the signing line, you needed to have bought the book here. If you bought the book here, you should have a green wristband. If you don't have a green wristband but bought the book here, then please see one of the staff members to have that happen. Also, we're a local independent bookstore, and we're really excited that you guys all came out to support an author, and to support an author who supports local independent bookstores. Okay. It seems like we have a phone that was left in the bathroom. If somebody is missing their phone and needs to take photos of the author, come see Heather. She has it. Oh, and there's a name, Lauren Cather. No, okay. Okay. So Jasmine Scott is the program manager at Langston. Which is a new nonprofit that is housed within the Langston Hughes Performing Arts Institute. The organization aims to be a beacon of Black arts and culture in Seattle. Gabrielle Union is an actress and author. You may know her from her television show Being. I could hardly do her career justice in such a short introduction, and I'm not really going to try. I know you know all more than I do. Her book, We're Going to Need More Wine, just became a New York Times bestseller. She is here to talk about it tonight. Please help me welcome Gabrielle Union and Jasmine.
What's up? Ooh. This feels good. Wowzers. Yeah. I think all of the people of color in Seattle done came out here. You brought them out, girl. You know, we're a little few and far between. We're spread out around here, so. To see this sea of beautiful browns, thank you guys. You did that. Where the colors helped them with them folks in the back. They came, you know, because I told them to come. Oh, this is you. This is lit. This feels like a family reunion. Yeah. This feels good. Yeah. So. Hopefully that's the vibe we can create this evening, you know, just have a conversation. We're all family. Hopefully I'll cover some of the things that you guys want to know this evening. And then at some point we're going to do a Q&A. Everybody is not going to get an opportunity to get their questions asked, okay? So let's be clear. And when you do get selected to ask your question later, please be brief. Don't give us an entire story, but please get to your question so that she can answer it, because we will only be able to get a few. So we good on that? Yeah. Yes. Thank you. All right, so you know, let's just get right into it. So we all, I know for me, I remember you most, or I was probably introduced to you from Bring It On. Miss Isis, and you know, you weren't about no mess, you know, and you're most notably remembered for a misquote that you mentioned in your book. It's already been brought. But you didn't say. Never said it. Never said it. But that's what you mentioned in your book, where people come up to you and they say that, and they quote you as saying that, and that's not what you said. And you kind of talked about perception being reality in those cases, and talking about how the character that you played, she was really an educated leader, but people chose to perceive her as a villain. And you know, we'll talk more about how Black actors, especially Black women actors, are perceived in Hollywood. But let's just talk a little. Let's start off talking just about your journey to getting here, and what made you decide? Like, what was that moment that made you say, "This, I want to be on TV and in movies"? What made you decide to do that?
So it's interesting that we're back here. While I was at UCLA, I was the book buyback supervisor.
Yeah.
When you buy that textbook for $150 and you're like, "Well, I'm about to get $150 back at the end of it," and you're like, "This is no longer worth anything." And you've planned your capability around that book buyback. I was the person that they called when you protested. The new edition that your book has gone into. So I was the book buyback supervisor. I was making $6.16 an hour that's after 3 raises and glowing evaluations. And I got an internship at a modeling agency to be office help for 4 credits. And I was already taking 20 units. I was paying for college myself. I was trying to get through as fast as possible. Listen. So while I was at this internship, interning at the modeling agency, I was almost done. And the adult side, I was working in the kids department. One of the agents from the adult side was like, "Would you ever consider modeling or, And I was like, you think somebody... because I'm studying for the LSATs. I was, UCLA. I was a very serious student until someone said they might pick me, possibly, for being attractive. And for someone with painfully low self-esteem, the idea that I could make money from people thinking I'm attractive, I signed up. Like, the same day. And then I was like, "Okay, so what's the first audition?" And they're like, "It's a Tupac video." It was the California Love video. And they said, "Come body conscious or in a bikini, and you're gonna have to dance for Tupac." What they didn't say was, and 25 of his closest friends. And it's gonna be, recorded, and they may later play that at, house parties. So I literally, they were quite clear as to what was to be expected in this audition. And, I'm a girl from I'm from a 2-parent household, and I grew up in a white suburb, on the right side of tracks, and I was a Catholic girl, I was a good girl, I was point guard, and I was like, "Hi, Tupac." That's exactly what it looked like. I looked like a dying cricket. I had a flip. I was probably about 20 pounds lighter. It was a sight. But the reality was I was willing to stand in line for the hope of exploiting myself. Hoping to be chosen. Hoping to be publicly chosen. And so when people say, why did you get into this industry? In the hopes of being publicly chosen. And if I got publicly chosen by a rapper or a production, then people will have to believe I'm of value, I'm worthy, I'm pretty, I'm talented, I'm smart. And here I am, 45, 20-some years later. Finally finding that I had value and I had worth from birth. Finally creating boundaries. Finally being okay with being seen, not as a defective, damaged, less than afterthought, but as a fully formed, in the process of healing and evolving, grown-ass woman with lower back pain on occasion. So that's how I got here.
That's amazing. So that actually kind of leads me to something that stuck out for me in the book. Let me just say, for those of you guys that haven't read the book, there are so many things to relate to. And that's necessary and needed, you know, for us to be able to see somebody who we look up to. You know, you're a celebrity, you're, you know, considered beyond reach. And for you to write these stories and they be so relatable to us, and for me to sit down and say, damn, I'm that girl. Damn, that happened to me too. I had that exact same thing said to me. It's really amazing, and it makes you very relatable, and it lets us know that we're kind of all fighting the same fight. You know, so thank you for that. But kind of to segue, I'm gonna flip through my notes a little bit so you guys don't talk about me if I jumble through. Talking about Black beauty and feeling beautiful in our dark skin, there's just so much to pick apart, right? We're all kind of dealing with this topic and healing. We're all in our healing process. That's kind of a process that never leaves us. And in your book, you talk a lot about colorism in your own family, about apologizing for your skin, about being a young teen feeling invisible and never being called pretty, the validation of beauty through meaningless actions, getting relaxers to fit a European beauty standard and using hair as validation and acceptance, being pretty for a dark-skinned girl, and the whole team light-skinned, dark-skinned phenomenon that we're dealing with right now. Hella problematic, right? And there's something that stood out for me that you said early on in the book, and I'll just go ahead and quote you here. You said, "Still, I struggle with these questions. Does this wig mean I'm not comfortable in my blackness? If I wear my hair natural, do I somehow become more enlightened? It is interesting to see the qualities ascribed to women who wear their hair in braids or in natural styles, even among Black people. We have so internalized the self-hatred and the demands of assimilation that we ourselves don't know how to feel about what naturally grows out of our head." You know, and so that statement, it sums up what so many of us in this room deal with, right? So can you just talk about how you've dealt with that professionally in your career? You talked about it in the book a little bit, but can you just tell folks, you know, some situations that you've dealt with where your natural look and your natural hair wasn't enough professionally?
I'm going to give you guys a very specific example that kind of encompasses a lot of the conversation. So I was on a job, and the character was described as beautiful and sophisticated and accomplished. And I said, "Oh, okay. I want her to wear braids." Well, I mean, she's attractive. And I said, "Oh, yeah. No, so I want her to wear braids, and she's really, you know, sophisticated and professional. Yeah, braids." How do I say this? You know, we just want her to be, you know, really, really polished. Yes, she's going to wear braids, and as the actor and executive producer, I'm going to put my foot down, and this conversation is over. But not always the executive producer. I'm not on every production. My manager also represents another actress who wears her hair natural. And he said, and she had just booked a show where she is the title character. She's number one on the call sheet. She's the most important person in the production. And he said, well, she's going to need an African-American hairstylist. Oh, yeah, but how about if she just gets her hair done before work and then we just zhuzh it up? And he said, that's discrimination and that's illegal because you're telling one actor that before work, when she should be preparing or sleeping or doing whatever the hell she wants to do, she's going to have to use her own money, her own time to go get her hair done because you refuse to offer her the same services that you're offering the white actors. Do you hear yourself as I repeat back what you just said? Well, that's not what I mean, and you're putting words in my mouth. No, actually, I took the liberty of recording this because this is not my first video. So, let me play that back for you. It's discrimination and it's illegal. So how are we going to rectify this? She was in a different position because she was number one on the call sheet. Now, there's been times where I was just one in the production. Nobody cared, except for me. And what I realize is if you don't come with your hair completely done the way you want it done and how you want to be captured for all eternity, and you're gonna look nuts. One of my first jobs I came because they said, come fresh from the shower. If there are any actors in here, models, that is called sabotage and don't do it. Unless you personally know the hairstylist on the job, you better come looking exactly the way you want to be documented forever. Because fresh from the shower don't mean the same thing for us as it does for other actors. And I made the mistake of coming fresh from the shower. I'm ready. Because I could see the woman's reaction in the mirror. It was like, and she's looking around like magically there will be a fairy god mother black hairstylist that emerges with, you know, the proper tools and products. And she proceeded to curl my hair and use hairspray, like literally that there was a curl left on the curling iron. But that is part of our reality because the people in the union who do hair and makeup hire each other. And the people that they allow to even join the union are people that look like them. Because the vast majority of the people in our union look like them. So as we increase the diversity and truly embrace more inclusion, all the other unions have to catch up, and they haven't. So going back to that story about the braids, that was a black production. I was having that conversation with black people. So when we talk about our hair journeys and team natural, team, you know, this, team that, whatever your hair journey is, that's amazing. You wear natural, great. You wear a wig, great. Wig, weave, great. Extensions, great. Bald, amazing. Whatever your hair journey is, it's beautiful and amazing, and you are no more or less black. Your character suddenly doesn't become amazing when you grow out a relaxer or you embrace natural hair. That is a hair choice. Who you are inside, your character, has nothing to do with what you choose to do with your hair. So we should stop judging people and assuming that if you rock a natural, then you were way more woke than the sister with a blonde wig. Your actions speak a lot. No, I mean, because I've met people where, you know, I did a movie called Top 5, and I rocked this blonde weave for a character, and I had so much anxiety that people would think I suddenly hated myself. Because when I'm not on set, I'm moving through the world with this blonde hair. And I was like, I'm gonna get ahead of this. I'm gonna post it on Instagram. I'm gonna say it's for a new role. So I'm gonna eliminate this. In the comments, even though I'm saying this is for a role, but even if I wanted to dye my hair blonde, who gives a fuck? I'm still the same person that is an advocate for rape victims. I'm still the same person that's a breast health advocate. I'm still the same person that is doing the work day in and day out to make this world a better place. So who the fuck cares if I opt to have blonde hair? I've met women with weaves and wigs down their back that would give me their last dime. And I've met sisters with naturals who would stab me in my gut and leave me to die. So our hair journeys are personal choices. And whatever that hair journey is amazing and right for you. We are not the hair police. We shouldn't be. I mean, but if we're gonna have a real conversation, I always think it's interesting when guys say, oh, I love a girl who's natural. Not the girl who's, doesn't wear all the weaves and wigs, but their version of Team Natural is only a woman with a slightly looser curl pattern. So when we talk about embracing natural hair, let's embrace all of natural hair. And when we talk about allowing people their own space for their hair journeys, whatever those may be, allow them the damn space. Don't assume somebody based on their hair journey. I started off at 8 years old getting relaxers because I wanted to look like my little classmates with the swingy pants, as I used to say. I wanted to be attractive based on Eurocentric beauty ideals, right? But I would leave the relaxer on so long that I literally got lesions. You know what's not sexy? Lesions. They're trying to assimilate, backfired. And then I would relax my hair so much, and when I started working, I would get weaves. So as they were braiding up my relaxed hair, it's breaking off. So that's what started me on my natural hair journey. Looking nuts. Just said, screw it, let me start over, because my hair was so damaged. So but in the middle of my journey, I might rock a natural one day, extensions the next, a wig the next. I'm still the same person doing the same work. I'm still the same, my soul is the same. So the moral of the story is, you can be beautiful, dope, fly, sophisticated, professional, wherever you are at on your hair journey, and it's all amazing and beautiful. Period.
Amen. And also, I think we need to be reminding young ladies of that. I think that's something that we're learning as grown-ass women. And that's sad that it takes us 20, 30 years to realize that what comes out of our head is beautiful. And whatever we decide to do, if we want to weave it up, braid it up, wig it up, we can do that and we're still beautiful. And I think young girls need to understand that too. So that message needs to be translated beyond, right? I want to talk a little bit about another situation in the book that I really, really related to. It was very similar, and it was an experience where you talked about being called a nigger in the 3rd grade. Hey!
Oh, that's a good time.
And you recalled, being in 3rd grade at recess, and the Latino boy was yelling, "Nikki's a nigger." And by the way, Nikki is what your family affectionately calls you based on your middle name, so you might hear us reference that a little bit. But they were yelling, "Nikki's a nigger." And Nigger Nikki is what she was being called at school. And I related to that because when I was about 6 years old, there was a girl that I used to play with in my neighborhood, white girl. And she would come to my yard to come find me so we could go play. And she came one day to come to the gate, and we were standing talking at the gate before I got permission to go outside of the gate and play. And we're talking, and then she was just like, "You're a nigger." Hey, yeah, right, I'm 6. She's 6. And she called me a nigger. And I kind of froze and was like, I started shaking, and I think I started crying, and I went in the house and got my mother and told her what happened, and was just really devastated, that my friend had called me this name, and I didn't even really know what it meant at 6 years old. I just knew it was bad. And you know, what I later on learned was that, you know, she didn't know what she was saying either. That's learned behavior. And to her family, I was the nigger girl that she played with, right? So that situation, you know, at 6, I have a terrible memory. So for me to remember that means a lot. That situation really stuck with me. And it really informed how I deal with white people and white friends. Because I'll never forget that. And, you know, there's a theme about acceptance in your book, in the stories. And there were times when you allowed yourself to be the butt of a joke and being the minstrel to make your white friends comfortable. And so my question about that is, you know, how were you able to weed out the bad ones or the less genuine ones to create those lasting friendships with some of those people that you talked about in the book that you are still friends with today, having experienced all that growing up in Pleasanton?
All right, well,
Let's get into it.
first let's dive into the boy that called me a nigger. Latino boy, and he had been othered. So where I grew up in this town called Pleasanton in the Bay Area, they had turned these army barracks into Section 8 housing, and they called the area Commodorsky. And they would bus the Commodorsky kids into Pleasanton across the freeway, and they were largely Latino and a couple of black kids and a couple white kids. But because they came on the bus, nobody rode the bus at our elementary school. It was an elementary school that was in the middle of a planned subdivision. So most kids walked or your parents dropped you off, but there was no school buses except the Commodorsky kids. So they were easily identified. And they were called as a collective. The fact that I can't remember any names, they were just the Commodorsky kids, which was largely then used in exchange for the Latino kids. They had been othered. They had been deemed less than, unworthy of being at our perfectly planned elementary school, and they were to be shunned. So when you realize that you've been othered and you don't want to be othered, you want to assimilate, he was just doing his best to be seen. It was just at my expense. But we were in the same boat. We just didn't know it. So when he was like, Nikki's a nigger, it was the white kids that joined in. And so he was seen. He got to be accepted in tormenting me, in creating terror in me. He was accepted. So now, looking back, I have to see his humanity and what he was going through. Because very quickly, and I talk about it in the book, a black girl transferred into our school named,
Tarsha.
Tarsha, yes. I changed her name. Because she's still around. She transferred into our school, and again, immediately became othered. She had an adult ass as a 3rd grader. And she insisted on wearing corduroys, and it's the noise. It was an unfortunate situation, and there were a lot of jokes made at her expense, and I just tried to avoid her because I felt like if they saw us together, they would identify me as black. I had looked the same for 45 years. They knew I was black. But for some reason, if we became close or even stood next to each other, then they might say that we were the black girls and I'd be othered. So I avoided her like the plague. Somehow my mother found out and was like, I heard you're being mean to the black girl, you better be her friend. And I was like, I'm not gonna do it. Then I'll be black. So my compromise was just ignoring her. And one day in the classroom, we talk about this in the book, they were like, whoever doesn't like, Tarsha, raise your hand. And I didn't raise my hand, I didn't do anything, and then they kind of gave me the look, and I was like, oh, I don't really know her that well. So I didn't get half of it. So I thought that was like, and I was like, girl, I got you, because I didn't go full, double. Some people shot out both hands. So I get, later in the day, I get called to the principal's office. I was an outstanding student. I was literally doing, I was in the GATE program. I don't know if you guys have that still, but it's for gifted and talented education. So they offered really interesting, elective, like calligraphy. So I was in calligraphy class. Nikki Union, please come to the principal's office. And I was like, it must be for an award. So I go to the principal's office, and he repeats the story of the lunchroom. And he said, did you raise your hand when they asked, did you, whoever doesn't like Tarsha, raise your hand? And immediately my mom's voice, you better be nice to her. I'm like, damn it. So I was like, well, no, I kind of did this because I wasn't sure, because I don't really know her. And he was like, your name is going into the blue book. Which I was pretty certain could keep me out of Harvard. I still don't think I could run for president because my name is probably still in the blue book. And he puts my name in the blue book. And what that lesson taught me is, in the face of adversity, we could side with the oppressor or the oppressed. And by me siding with the oppressor in this situation, the girls that were tormenting Tarsha, I am complicit. I am part of the problem. I will never forget it, which is why it's in my book. So when we move on to the kinds of bonds of friendship, interracial friendship, I always go back to the moment in the sleepovers where I would sleep, casket pretty, try not to move, hoping that by the time I woke up, my hair looked the same as when I went to sleep. And it never would. And I'd wake up and they'd go, you look like buckwheat, do buckwheat. I did buckwheat, y'all. I did it. Oh, day. And I was cooning for claps. Those same people, as we got a little older, and we started, going out and going to Oakland for concerts, or traveling around for soccer, and they would talk about the people from the other side of the hill. That's Oakland. But it was like Middle Earth. And the white people were the precious, and they were coming for the precious. I remember one of my friend's moms said, well, when you go over the hill and they say woo woo to you, there's been a lot of things that has been said to me. Even in the comment section, I've never had anyone say woo woo to you. But in their loving advice on how to navigate the urban centers of the Bay Area, they were demonizing and weaponizing blackness. They were deeming my black skin, as I'm sitting there, inherently threatening. They would tell racist jokes, homophobic jokes, and nobody said anything. As I got older, and I left Pleasanton, and I started becoming more prideful, and I started being seen, really seen as a whole person by people that looked like me, I would always go back to their silence, and the do buckwheat, and the racist jokes, and the, oh hey, don't nigger lip it. Well, I'm gonna try to rig this up. I'm just gonna nigger rig it real quick. So to this day, 30 years later, I've never forgotten. Their friendship is in a box. The access to my life, to my most authentic self, is painfully limited to Instagram likes or Facebook posts. And so when we talk about how do we navigate friendships, if your friends cannot see your humanity, if your friends think weaponizing blackness is amusing, if your friends think racism is not that big of a deal, oh my God, stop overreacting. They're really not your friends. They don't want to see you. And choose wisely.
Did anybody make it? You know, I mean, I'm genuinely curious, you know, growing up and being in those situations, was there anybody as you got older that learned that that's not okay, and really, did anybody make any efforts to change those behaviors to be a better friend to you, or did you kind of have to leave them in that box?
Well, I moved, and the people who made the effort to know me before I became, you know, when I was still Nikki, the people who made the effort then, I gave them a chance to evolve. The people who only felt the need to offer any sort of apology once my name was on a marquee, get the fuck out of here. But the friends that I had, you know, had growing up, the ones that are still my friends to this day that came to the San Francisco Q&A. One is Portuguese and Hawaiian, and there was one, my one girlfriend who, she disappeared herself. Come to find out, you know, she was painfully unhappy in her trappings and had to disappear from her life to come back whole. So we saw each other out of necessity and just basic human decency, but most people didn't make it in any kind of real, formidable, you have my real number kind of way.
And that's absolutely okay. So I got this, the time is flying. This is amazing. I already got the signal that we're gonna need to transition. And I had so many things I wanted to talk to you about, but maybe my PFF later.
Wait, on the heels of this, I just, because we've been having this ongoing conversation about allies. So I was talking about the friends I made from home, you know, my friends from back home. But the friends who don't look like me now, who I've made as an adult, whole, healed, proud person, have to be real allies. They have to think the hashtag solidarity is for white women, they have to think that's bunk. Their feminism has to be intersectional. They have to be able to, hello?
Please making your final selection.
Time to go, y'all.
I forgot where I was. Oh, allies, yes. Thank you. You have to recognize not just gender, but race as well. You have to see all of the connections, sexuality, privilege. You have to see how it all works together. Those are the kind of real allies. I need you to be as equally outraged about Rose McGowan losing her Twitter as Jamel Hill losing her job. I want to see the same amount of outrage at Cecil the Lion's death as a black child. I need your humanity to be wide and inclusive. It's my mom. But yeah, so all of the friends that you see me with now, of all races, ethnicities, cultures, religions, they're real allies and real advocates that believe in all of our humanity. And that is the boundary that I had to create, because I just don't have time for bullshit friendships.
I love it. All right, so I'm not going to be able to get to everything that I wanted to chat about, but we do have a few minutes for folks to ask question.
Your hand shot up first.
Yeah, I've been seeing you in the corner of my eye the whole time, so go ahead, you be first.
You look like me. And I just thank you for that, because I grew up not seeing women that look like me, talking like me. And that means a lot to me. You have no idea to see this room of women of color, because you look like us, and we need that. Standing out, so sorry. But I wanted to ask you, in this role of Issa Rae's and women who are now just coming out and showing that women of color can do everything, what made you sit down and say, I have to be one of these women that backs this movement of Black women coming forward? Because I'm telling you, when you guys came out, and I don't know if y'all felt it, but I felt it. And I was like, I'm going somewhere. I'm going, like I see all these Black women doing beautiful things. Thank you so much. And I just want to know what made you do that. And I appreciate you doing that from like literally the bottom of my heart. I'm fading out, guys.
Do you mean coming out about being a survivor?
Just
Do you mean
everything.
just everything? Just trying to be
heard.
transparent.
Yeah, we're never heard, and you came out like a force. Like this book tour, I found out Monday this was happening. I was like, all right, don't call me, I'm here.
I want to connect. Because I have a gang of friends. Some are here tonight. And there's times where I feel alone in a crowded room. I feel like no one could possibly understand what I feel. I feel isolated. I feel ostracized. Once you have been publicly humiliated, you feel worthless. But I found that the more I would talk to people, whether it's just my friends, if I giving them a chance to actually hear me and see me, or a room full of my friendly strangers. There's a lot of Me Too's about all kinds of things, but we don't share. So as I'm moving on this path towards my most authentic self, that requires honesty and accountability, I want it to be a community of us on this journey together. And this book is that hand across the ocean saying, I got you, I see you, do you got me back?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's pretty
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Over here.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for coming. And I saw you on the Late Late Show the other night, and I enjoyed you. But I was wanted to tap into your activism in terms of your husband being a ball player and this era of him kneeling with this flag business. And so I just wanted to know, is your husband amongst that, or what are your views on that?
Well, there's my views and then there's his views.
That's right.
There was a time when Trayvon Martin was assassinated that I came home to my husband and he's literally sitting on the couch with a hoodie on. Our preteens at the time come in from school, they both literally have hoodies on. And I'm tweeting up a storm, I'm crying, I'm outraged. And I was like, what are you gonna do? And then it comes out that Trayvon Martin was a Heat fan. He spent his days with you, watching you, supporting you, cheering you on. In his memory, what are you gonna do? You got two little black boys who could be murdered in this state for blackness. Open carry state, stand your ground state. All somebody has to do is say, I was threatened. What are you prepared to do as their father? Brown's got kids, Chris Bosh has kids, Mike Miller has boys. Like, what are you all prepared to do? So perhaps I nudged. But there comes a time everyone stands on their own 2 feet. And I have kindly nudged. And I think there's a reason there's only one Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
There's a reason there's only a few guys per team. You know, we're in Seattle. This city has seen how many state-sanctioned us? But we're gonna lock arms.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you have Bennett, you have Baldwin. There's 55 guys on a team though.
Right.
So I will continue to nudge. But he's on his journey. God bless him. See, the way my prenup is set up, my activism is over here. And I can't be responsible for this.
Can I get the young man here, Joe Pat? Yeah, I'm talking that shit tonight, right?
First off, I want to say that I love your candor and I love your brutal honesty about everything. But I wanted to ask you, being a woman of an exceptional merit that you are and clairvoyance, where's your spiritual refuge and sanctuary?
In here. I used to find it in a building. But then there was no accountability for the systematic abuse of children. So I found my God in myself. As I go on this spiritual journey towards my most authentic self, which to me means the way God intended for me to live, in honesty and in transparency, with an open heart, with an open mind, setting my intentions in the most honest, pure, good place. And this is a weird segue, but since you asked a spiritual question, but I used to have a basket full of fucks. And as I moved towards my most authentic self, I scooped out the fucks from this big ass basket. And now my basket is empty of fucks to go. But it's in here. It's in here.
All right, so I can't give you a sub question.
I was about to say that. I was about to say that's why Mary Jane is the shit.
Mary Jane was canceled. So it's time to be a fight. It's to be a fight. It's too soon. It's too soon. What's her word pain right now? Still not healed? Shit. I got something in the can. They just announced it on Twitter as I was on my way here. So since they announced it,
All right.
we are doing a Bad Boys spinoff.
We need you. We need you. We need you. Okay, so I have time for one more very brief question, and this is gonna be hard trying to. Oh, Sharon, I gotta give it to Sharon.
You made a point earlier to say, as the executive producer, I put my foot down. Can you talk a little bit about your transitioning from, and your decisioning from going just to being an actor on a set, to now being an executive producer, to now being an author, to now being an activist?
I wanted to employ people. I have a lot of extremely talented, unemployed friends. And I wanted to see more representation in front of and behind the camera. And as the projects that I was a part of got bigger, I was like, oh, they recognize my value. I'm gonna try. Let's see what they say. I need to be executive producer on this project in order for me to participate. Okay.
You can
damn it, I should have done this sooner. And from that, I've been running. I'm creating left and right. I'm partnering with people that I love and respect. Last week we sold, me and David Talbert, the director of Almost Christmas, partnered with this guy, LeBron James, sold a show called White Dave to ABC. And today, which they announced, which was a little premature, but it's done, I partnered with Jerry Bruckheimer, Sony, this producing team that writes on the Blacklist called the Brandons, to create the Bad Boys / Bad Girls, but it won't be called that, spin-off with my character, character Sid, and that's, I don't know if I can say where it's set up. It's at Sony, but the network will be announced soon. Yeah, but it's I'm producing all of this. I am in the room. I am staffing.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. You know? But I'm learning from Issa Rae. She's 20 years younger. I'm texting Issa Rae. Now, how did you do it? How did you set up that deal? She was like, "Oh, that's what I did." I'm calling Carrie. You know. Olivia Pope may be ending, but Kerry Washington is just beginning. She has so many good things. Lupita, like we're creating. Viola, Octavia Spencer, we are creating, and we finally are. There was enough people in positions of power to greenlight.
That's right.
Where they actually get that diversity, inclusion isn't just the right thing to do because you're a decent human being. It's actually quite lucrative. So they are finally seeing the value in our diversity of life experiences and our stories, and seeing our value in front of and behind the cameras. So that's how that transition happened.
I think we're truly in the era of Black Girl Magic, and we're slating ourselves to run the world. And we thank you for inspiring so many of us to do that and to feel okay with putting ourselves in front and doing that. So here's what we're gonna do. I can't take any more questions because we're out of time. If you have a green wristband, stay where you're at. If you don't have a green wristband, I'm sorry. Thank you for coming and good night. If you don't have a green wristband, though, we're gonna ask you to kind of move off somewhere else so that the people with wristbands can begin to get their book signed. I want to thank you guys for coming and being here and filling this space with all this melanin. Thank you guys.